Thank you. So hi, everyone. My name is Hua Xu. I'm leading the NLP working group. So today I'll give you a quick update about what we have done in the past year. We have three objectives. Sorry, list last one should be three. So number one is really disseminate knowledge, and we decided to contribute a chapter on NLP in the Odyssey book. And so far we just have the outline here, but we do have people volunteered for each different subsections, and we're kind of working on that. So the second objective is really for the textual data representation. It's led by Michael, who actually did submit the proposal for a revised no NLP proposal, and also prepared a poster which is accepted for the symposium, show a proof of concept study across a few sites using the new Node NLP structure. And the last one is actually multiple clinical studies to show we can use both the structured data and the textual data. One is about type 2 diabetes, social determinants, one is on oncology, and another one is on psychiatry. They are led by different folks like Dr. Andrew Williams. So kind of still ongoing for all those research projects. It's a little bit slow, but we're still steadily moving forward with a regular meeting on those projects. If anyone is interested in participate, please reach out to us. Next slide. I also have a shout out for the NLP working group at the symposium. It's October 21st in the morning. And we do have a few very interesting topics. Michael will talk about the making NLP-derived data actionable. And then Daniel will talk about to evaluate NLP methods. And there's also a discussion on the NLP chapter for the book. And then 3 studies we will also discuss in the meeting. And at the end, we will have a panel on large language models. I think a lot of people should be interested in how those large language models might be used in the real world study or in the clinical NLP. Myself with Juan, I think we have another from the University of Florida, Penn, will join us to discuss the recent work in this topic. That's it. Thanks, everyone. Look forward to seeing you in the symposium.
Great, thank you, Hua. Jose.
So among our objectives has been increasing the participation of the of people on the OHDSI community and the community calls. One of the objectives has been fulfilled. There are people that are actually going to travel to the OHDSI Symposium from the OHDSI Latam working group, which is really, really great. There are people from Brazil that are got their paper accepted and posters and are going to present there. The second is related to conversions. So there has been one successful conversion of administrative data in Brazil that have resulted already in one publication, which is awesome. That is one of the big things that are happening, and incorporations of vocabulary into the main Latina distribution. Brazil is being has been the driving force on most of what is going on the big picture in Latin America, but the other actors in Chile, Argentina, and Colombia are still working towards catching up. But we're going there, and we continue providing a space for everybody to come and share resources, and we're getting there. So that's our updates.
Great, thank you, Jose. So next up is the steering group, but because I just saw Lin Ying pop up, we missed a shout out. She started yesterday, I believe yesterday, right, as assistant professor of biostatistics at Washington University of St. Louis. So a missed shout out, but congratulations to Lin Ying, and certainly we look forward to following her work. She was one of our presenters at the symposium last year. So congratulations, Lin Ying. On that note, I will now turn it back to Patrick for our steering work group.
Great. Thank you, Craig. So I'm representing our steering work group on behalf of George and myself and everybody who participates. Just a quick reminder that our steering work group, our purpose is to support the community and its leaders to collaboratively generate the evidence that promotes better health decisions and better care. And we do that by identifying, organizing, and guiding collaborative activities, facilitating communications across the community, and providing input to the operations of the OHDSI Central Coordinating Center. And so when we started the year, we set our OKRs. Our first one was to empower our work groups to contribute to collaboratively generating evidence that promotes better health decisions, better care. And I'm really proud to see all of the progress that our work groups have made. Our contribution within the steering work group has been to hold work group leader summits and to really encourage our work groups to think about collaboration opportunities that they can lead themselves and to facilitate space for that. So really looking forward to seeing most of you come to the OHDSI Symposium, where you'll see work group activities that are dominating our weekends together as a community. Our second objective has been to create collaboration opportunities to encourage collaborative generation and dissemination of evidence that promotes better health decisions and better care. A large part of our focus for the last several months has been getting the community ready for our OHDSI Global Symposium. And so we're really excited that we're here in October and looking forward to seeing you all in East Brunswick in a couple weeks. And we really hope that as part of the symposium, not only will you share your own work and identify new collaborations, but you'll also contribute to community activities for evidence generation. And in particular, George will be leading our How Often workshop, where we'll be spending a full day with the whole community focused on large-scale characterization. And I really am optimistic that that'll be a great opportunity for us to showcase what our OHDSI community is all about in terms of the ability to come together and generate evidence. Throughout the year, we also led other community activities, including Phenotype February and the Sisyphus Challenge, which were good demonstrations of how our community can work together. And throughout the rest of the year, we'll seek further opportunities to engage collaborations. And then the last thing that we stated as an objective was to try to establish a strategy for thinking about OHDSI Asset Library. And this is something that members of the work group are still focused on. The main thing I wanted to leave you with is hope that you're going to come to the symposium, hope that you find it a fulfilling opportunity to engage in collaborations. If you have feedback about how we can make it better, please share that with our steering group. But I will promise you here that if you do come to the symposium, you will get to experience something that you will never experience at any other scientific conference anywhere around the world. So I look forward to seeing you all there and look forward to having a lot of fun and collaborating with you.
Thank you, Patrick. I can attest to the fact that that is true. Next up, Atif Amin for health equity.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, so I guess this year's health equity objective is to really kind of increase the spectrum of going from research to implementation when we talk about health equity within the OHDSI community. I guess the 4 areas that we'll be focusing on is highlighting some of the research work being done by our OHDSI work group members on critical areas of health equity, both in the US and globally. What we brought together this year is a panel of experts who are both policymakers and consultants to really think about what health equity means from policy to practice and what the implementation of health equity and social determinants means in the real world. As an extension from last year's work group, what we have this year is a hands-on exploration of playing with health equity data. So we have a health equity explorer toolkit that our work group members have built and will be used in the work group session to really highlight how research topics are enhanced by components of social determinants and other health equity factors. The last part, we'll have almost a Shark Tank session where workgroup members have given topics that they're interested in for 2024. And the idea is to generate interest and create excitement on building these into tangible projects and papers for the upcoming year.
Great, Atif Adam. I gave you the wrong last name, but apologies for that. But thank you, and thank you for helping take over the health equity work group. Next up, a new work group or a developing work group. This is the industry industry work group, and this is Paul Dougall.
Yeah, thanks very much. So yeah, as you said, this is a new group, and we'll actually have our inaugural meeting at the Global Symposium, so that will be exciting for us. And really, the overarching purpose of this group is to represent the interests of the industry OHDSI members within the wider OHDSI community, and really kind of bridge those interests and insights between the two. So we've got a few kind of goals we want to achieve over the coming year and it's really to foster a stronger collaboration between these two kind of diverse memberships, identify and develop strategies to encourage the participation of industry partners within OHDSI, especially in the studies and additional initiatives, to facilitate knowledge transfer, share industry expertise and learnings with the broader community, identify opportunities for mutual support, and how can we leverage industry resources and capabilities to advance OHDSI goals, and to increase the visibility and understanding of OHDSI's initiatives within industry. So that's sort of what we're working on as we go forward. And we go to the next slide. And there's just a plug for the symposium meeting. So this will be on the Saturday from 8 AM to 12. And really we'll just be having quite broad strokes here, but we'll have our development of our objectives, roundtable and canvassing interests, and trying to formalize the structure of this working group going forward. And I would encourage anyone who has some affiliation with industry to attend, or even those who are interested in bridging these gaps and partnerships to attend this working group. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Paul, and thank you for leading this. Allison just sent me a message that she isn't able to make it today. I'm not sure if Louisa or Stephanie is on this right now.
Yeah, I can chat unless Stephanie's on here and wants to.
I don't think she is. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, great. Yeah. Sorry, I just learned about 10 minutes ago that Allison wouldn't be here, so I'm happy to just give a quick off-the-cuff introduction to our work group, or update on our work group, which we started earlier this year. The goal of it was to develop tools and standards for pregnancy and reproductive research, to foster collaborative studies in this area within the OHDSI network, and to really just be part of the larger reproductive and perinatal health research community. So we've had two main objectives over the course of the year. One of them was just really revolved around starting up the work group, to host monthly meetings and to involve people from at least 10 different institutions, and to have those times have those meetings be times where we could share updates and research on reproductive and perinatal health, and to pilot an initial network study on the treatment of hypertension in pregnancy. And so Stephanie will be presenting some results from that initial study, or some initial results from that initial study, as a poster at the symposium. And then our other objective has been to improve capture and representation of pregnancy and reproductive health data in the OMOP CDM. And that's something that's still ongoing. We're really trying to understand how people at different institutions are representing their pregnancy episodes and the different people involved with a pregnancy. So we'll be talking about this a lot more during our work group session at the symposium, which is also Saturday morning, 8 to noon. We'll be doing some discussion about pregnancy episode identification, some phenotyping of pregnancy and postpartum phenotypes, and are really excited to keep this work group moving.
Great, thank you, Louisa, and nice job doing that with 10 minutes of prep time. Next up, Tina Parciak for the Registry work group.
Yeah, hi. So just like last year, we had several talks from different registries and projects who we have transformed the model. And during the meetings, we discussed challenges. We also kickstarted the document where all the challenges assembled, and as a positive thing, some of us also met at the OHDSI Europe meeting this year, and I can confirm that it's a very nice event to get to know them. What we plan to do the next month so the next year is because during this year, yeah, life happened to me, so I was only able to host a meeting every 2 to 3 months. But from now on, I try to establish a new routine of having a monthly meeting, and the next meeting will be October 24th. And we want to elevate the experiences and challenges that we heard in transforming registry data to the OMOP common data model by translating them into a publishable manuscript so that we can heighten, of course, the visibility of registry data on OMOP. We want to build a GitHub wiki for registry data. And we saw the last time we discussed that everybody have a different definition for what registry means. So we will include a small work package on the definition of registry, the different kinds, the similarities and the differences. We will start formulating best practices and guidelines for the transformation of registry data to the OMOP common data. And we want to grow as I call it, registry to OMOP network. And we are always inviting, or I am always inviting people who also have made experiences with transforming registry data to the OMOP common data model to have a short presentation in one of our meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Next up is Kerry Goetz. She's going to talk about the eye care and vision research work group.
Thanks, Craig. Hi, everybody. We are a pretty new group. I think we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary very recently. But in the year that we've been charging forward, have accomplished a number of things, including, as everyone knows, the SOS Challenge led by Cindy Kai. And that was on anti-VEGF therapies and kidney injury. And so we're currently working on drafting that up and just getting some of the details and more subject matter expert parts together before circulating with others in the community for their input. We successfully submitted a few phenotypes to how often. We've actually done a good bit of work in looking for areas where the source vocabularies needed some revamping. And so we've been working with SNOMED and LOINC folks to submit missing terms to help get some consistency even at the baseline where the data is collected. We have lots of active subgroups, retina, glaucoma, uveitis, pediatrics, and we have published a article about mapping, a journal article in Ophthalmology Science. It was called Advancing Toward a Common Data Model in Ophthalmology, Gap Analysis of General Eye Exam Concepts to Standard OMOP Concepts. That was just a couple months ago. This work, I can say, has been spearheaded by a position we were able to create. So I work at the NIH, at the National Eye Institute, and we were able to get an NIH data scholar, Dr. Michelle Rybar, who also works at OHSU. So she's been super helpful in making sure everything keeps going. And of course, Sally Baxter is our other co-lead on the working group. So they have just had such dedication to keep us moving forward. As we all know, this is volunteer and it can be hard to juggle all the things. So in the next upcoming season, and some of this work's already started, we've started a new subgroup on imaging integration. So eye care is very strongly based in image analysis, and there's a lot of really awesome research in artificial intelligence approaches using ocular imaging to look at all sorts of things, not even just eye diseases, but systemic diseases. So we're starting to work with that, and we've been working with Paul Nagy a lot. Also some work on ETL development starting up, and then trying to look at what's like a standard eye exam and looking at eye exam concepts like visual acuity, IOP, and refraction, and comparing those among several sites and see about consistency and maybe bringing imaging into that research as well. And then, of course, increasing visibility of our work, both to the OHDSI community as well as the vision research and eye care community in general. So we've been trying to do a lot of educational courses and presentations along the way just to get the word out and get people on board with harmonization and standardization. And we look forward to seeing everyone in a couple weeks. I'm grateful that the shutdown was averted so that travel can happen. So I was grateful that this is no longer a risk, and I look forward to seeing everyone there.
Great, thank you, Kerry. Yes, that was a good point. That is helpful. So glad to be able to have you at the event. Next up, Asia Lin, medical devices. Asia, are you here? I didn't see her in the list. Okay, let's move on. Claire Blacketer, come on down.
Thank you. And I did not understand the assignment, so I have slides on my own computer. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, so I've got a few slides. As I said, I did not understand the assignment. All right, so I'm going to share with you a little bit about the Common Data Model Working Group as well as the Network Data Quality Working Group. So as a reminder, I always like to bring it back to our purpose. So the CDM work group, we really exist to curate and maintain the OMOP CDM for the community because it's this standardization that enables us to generate evidence that promotes better health decisions and better care. So we are, in my opinion, and I think most of you guys would agree, we are directly related to the overall OHDSI mission. And this year, we really wanted to focus on the model expansion efforts that are going on around the community. And when I say expansion, I actually think we've heard a lot of them just today around many different groups that are working on understanding how they might adapt the principles of the OMOP CDM to specifically represent the data that they are interested in, like the pregnancy and reproductive health and the eye care and vision research group. So we wanted to conduct at least 10 meetings with a presentation from a work group or model expansion owner, and then we wanted to design a maturity model and repository for these expansions. Key result 1, we've actually conducted 8 different meetings over this past year where we've heard from different groups and organizations. And what's actually been really fun is lately we've actually heard from some groups that I hadn't met before. So the last one we heard from was the University Hospital in Munich, where they are focusing on standardizing ECMO data, which is, hopefully I can get it right, extracorporeal, I forget, but it helps you breathe. It's those breathing machines that people use during COVID-19. But it's really interesting and really exciting. And so it was really fun to hear from them because I'd never met them before, but they are doing some really great work. And then our second key result was to design a maturity model and repository for these expansions. So we've actually completed our maturity model, but our repository is not yet set up. So we are going to be focusing on that in the final quarter of this year. And we actually just had a great discussion at our meeting right before this, where we talked about our Q4 2023 goal and then some potential goals for next year and how we're going to maybe start to build out a roadmap for the OMOP CDM. All right, so that was the Common Data Model Working Group. Now let's switch over to the Network Data Quality Working Group. Now this working group, we exist to develop the OHDSI Evidence Network, and this is the name, the new freshly minted name of the OHDSI data network we've been talking about throughout the rest of the year. We are now officially calling it the OHDSI Evidence Network because what are we here to do is to generate evidence. So that's really where we want to put our focus. The objective that we came up with, I think we have two, but the first one was to create the OHDSI Evidence Network catalog to encourage network studies across interested partners who have data and to promote data quality best practices. We wanted to get at least 20 individual databases to contribute to aggregate statistics, and we wanted to produce data diagnostic results for at least 5 potential studies. And our second objective was to continue to develop the data quality dashboard, but in conjunction with our efforts related to the OHDSI Evidence Network. And to do that, we wanted to add some new data quality checks, and really we wanted to determine the subset of checks that should be included in the network aggregate summary statistic extract. Really, when people are submitting their aggregate summary statistics to the OHDSI Evidence Network, we want to also enforce a small subset of checks that would help us determine any fatal data quality issues that could potentially arise. So, just giving you a quick overview of where we landed for our key results so far. We currently have 36 individual databases in the OHDSI Evidence Network, and I have leads on so many more thanks to everybody who filled out the CDM user survey. I'm going to start tracking you down after the symposium if you said you are interested in participating in network research. So I anticipate we are going to grow exponentially over the next year. And then we wanted to produce the data diagnostic results for at least 5 potential studies. We have done it for 4, the 4 SOS studies, and I, again, anticipate this will grow exponentially as we continue to build out the OHDSI Evidence Network. On to our next objective. We wanted to add 3 new data quality checks. We haven't quite done that yet, and really that's because we've been focusing on our second key result, which is determining that subset of checks that should be included in the network extract. Just this past week, this work culminated in what we call like a mini hackathon, where we identified fatal checks among other activities. Craig, do I have a couple minutes to just quickly go over the output because we were really excited about what we learned?
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
I'm going to turn it over to Katie. Katie, can you share with us just a little bit about what we did and what we learned and how fantastic it was last week?
Sure thing, I can. It looks like my camera is a gray square, but can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. Yeah, so last week we did this mini hackathon, which is supporting our second part of this work group mission around establishing data quality best practices. So in the hackathon, our goal was to review all of the current data quality checks in the DQD in order to identify gaps and inconsistencies in both check logic and documentation, create user guidance for how to handle check failures, and come up with this new categorization system for the checks, including this fatal category. It was a big success. We had around 10 to 15 people join throughout the 2 days, and we assessed over a little 2/3 of our checks. And our short-term next steps are to implement those documentation and categorization changes actually in the DQD code. And we're going to get to do that as a group in person during the Hades hackathon at the symposium. So if you're interested in pitching in, come join us there. And then in the longer term, we're going to work on an overhaul of the overall like execution and check review workflow in the DQD. This is probably going to include a new, easier to use UI that looks more like a report for users to work through. And yeah, basically just incorporate all of these learnings in a big V3 release of DQD probably over the next year or so. So stay tuned.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah, so it was super awesome. I think we had a great time. We learned a lot. So like Katie said, if you want to be included in the hands-on updates of the DQD, please join the Hades Hackathon at the OHDSI Symposium. And then if you want to join our joint working session all around the OHDSI Evidence Network, that will be happening on Saturday from 8 to 12. So you have 2 different options there depending on your interest, but we hope to see you at one of them.
Great, thank you, Claire and Katie. I'm going to go back now. Yes, okay, Davera.
Oops. Thank you, Craig. You guys can hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good morning, everyone. So to paraphrase our work group purpose, we were to consolidate the prior efforts from 4 OMOP and FHIR subgroups and progress generation of a draft interoperability specification. Our first OKR was around consolidating those prior efforts. We formed the work group, we held weekly meetings, and we reviewed prior work. We've worked with the HL7 FHIR management group, and now we have one of their GitHub repos to develop an implementation guide in. Our next steps here are to leverage both the prior work and the output of the October Connectathon to generate an HL7 implementation guide. Next slide, please. Our next OKR had to do with establishing how to represent the OHDSI standardized vocabularies on a FHIR terminology server. So here I want you all to note that among the differences between HL7 and OHDSI is that HL7 uses the term terminology much the same way that OHDSI uses vocabulary. Another difference is that HL7 has very different decision-making processes. They employ Robert's Rules of Order, and to progress, they vote on work. So working with the FHIR product manager, Graham Grieve, we have achieved acceptance of an HL7 design for the OMOP code system and concept map FHIR resources. We've also identified a host for the OHDSI standardized vocabularies content, like the content that's available now on Athena, on a FHIR terminology server. Our next steps are to establish a design that accommodates the OMOP vocabulary relationship structures that works with the FHIR terminology server operations. Also, we have a draft that has been approved, but we'll publish a Using OHDSI Vocabularies on FHIR page in the resource that's the source of terminological truth for HL7 on terminology.hl7.org, or also called THO. Next slide, please. Our last OKR was to convene a hands-on activity for the community. And as you may have heard, we are hosting an all-day session on Sunday at the Global Symposium. Our objectives are not only to generate results that will support our specification, but it provides participants experience doing transformations, provides our tooling partners the opportunity to get feedback from the community, and permits us to share some basic information about FHIR. Our next steps here are to include the analysis of our results for generating the specification, as we described earlier, and we are planning to host another community-a-thon type event, likely virtually in early 2024. I don't know if you noticed in the first slide, but we got a little bit of a late start with our group. So I am personally very proud of the progress we've been able to make so far. And I'm really looking forward to working with all of you at the symposium and taking our next steps in this part of our OHDSI journey in 2024.
Great. Thank you, Davera. So that was everybody who signed up for today. We do have a number of people who've signed up for the 10th, but we also have a few who didn't sign up. And if anybody, we do have a few minutes here. If anybody wants to do a quick update, feel free to raise your hand. Otherwise, I'll give it like, okay, there we go. Mike, we'll go Mike and then Robert.
Perfect. I'm going to provide an update from what we originally had proposed here. So I'll just go to one slide just to show you the updates and the original OKRs that were there. So the first one was identifying, greater than or equal to 3 real-world SCTM clinical studies. Believe it or not, it was actually much more challenging to achieve that than originally thought. But we did get some support from CPATH. They had provided, I believe, 6 tuberculosis studies that were produced in SCTM format. Sorry, I'm hearing a lot of background noise.
Yeah, I'm going to try to mute them, whoever it is.
Okay, that was our elevator music.
There we go.
Delayed. So yes, we achieved key result number 1. We actually have more than 6 real-world data studies in SCTM format. Number 2 was around developing the conceptual mappings, kind of similar to FHIR and OMOP, but I would say a little bit more challenging just because SDTM doesn't have that robust terminology, and the actual variables are broken up into more granular representations of the patient data. So that process has been quite challenging to ensure that both ends of the spectrum, so the experts that are provided here understand the context between how SDTM is structured and the terminology associated with that, as well as how we're mapping into OMOP tables. It's becoming more of a realization that this is not a trivial process. I'm sure a lot of people probably knew that already, but a lot of experience and knowledge is being gained as we go through this process. And number 3 is really where we want to get to. We are capturing our lessons learned and providing best guidance as we go through the mapping process, and that will feed into creating a topic-based approach for generally for OMOP CDM industry. And just to show you exactly what kind of the work looks like, we've created our own specification out of the group so we can track basically the CDM tables, where it's mapping, as well as the SDTM corresponding matrix as well, because it is a one-to-one, sometimes one-to-many, many-to-one, and many-to-many type of mappings. So it does prove to be a challenge. And we're also putting together common rules that can be basically applied across the different tables for different use cases, such as patient information going to person's table and things like that. And then the mappings themselves, we again create our own specification, leveraging basically the metadata tables that exist as part of OMOP CDM, but putting it into a space that our mapping and reviewers can actually go in there and begin doing some of that work. So with that said, I'll stop there and hand it back.
Great, Mike. Thank you so much. Robert, I actually realize now I do have your slides, so I'll run your slides for you, and you can provide the dentistry updates.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Craig. I appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. My name is Robert Koski, and I lead the OHDSI Dentistry Workgroup. The Dentistry Workgroup's mission is to understand how dentistry can leverage observational research to improve oral health outcomes and further investigate the links between oral health and systemic disease. Our workgroup began meeting in November of 2022, and since that time, we've made progress towards increasing adoption of observational research in dentistry. Our membership has increased to 35 people. We have 3 posters to present at the OHDSI Global Symposium, and we're also working on acquiring a dental data set to map to the OMOP Common Data Model. We have 3 objectives and key results that we'll be working toward over the next 6 months. The first is to enrich our workgroup. This is going to include recruiting a co-lead for me. We'll also be hosting guest speakers from both within the OHDSI community as well as from external organizations to learn more about how observational research can fit into the dental profession. Our second objective is to increase our understanding of observational research in dentistry and promote awareness of observational research within the dental community. We already started on a scoping review on observational research in dentistry, and we plan to submit it for publication by the end of the year. We're also working on an assessment of the OMOP Common Data Model and the available dental terminologies in order to identify opportunities and challenges for observational research in dentistry. And finally, we plan to increase the capabilities of the dental community to conduct observational research by obtaining our dental data set and mapping it to the OMOP Common Data Model, with the ultimate goal of conducting an observational research study with the data. We're really excited to continue our journey to improve oral health and hope that you'll join us whether you have experience in dentistry or not. We have 2 meeting times every week to accommodate this for members from different time zones. Our work group meeting is on Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and our activity group is on Tuesday mornings at 7 a.m. Eastern time. I'll be at the OHDSI Global Symposium along with several other members of the dentistry work group, and we would be thrilled to meet you. Thank you very much, and have a great day.